in the Congo Basin, witnesses now claim that the Mokele-Mbembe is real.
He always came out of the cave to find food.
The awakening of Mokele-Mbembe, in the dense heart of Central Africa, where the rivers run dark and the canopy never breaks, an ancient presence is said to move beneath the waters. The locals call it Mokele-Mbembe, the one who stops the flow of rivers. To outsiders, it is a legend.
Animal that they call Mokele-Mbembe, and he's this gigantic dinosaur-type brontosaurus animal. He's got a long neck. He's mostly in the water.
A relic from prehistory that refuses to die. But to the people who live along the Congo Basin, it is something far more real. Something alive, something watching. In the darkness of the Likawala wetlands, nights are long and heavy. The air hangs thick with the smell of mud and decay, and the chorus of frogs and insects never fades. Yet, every so often, that familiar rhythm breaks. The jungle falls silent, and even the birds stop calling. It is in those rare moments that witnesses claim they hear it, the low, thunderous rumble of a creature vast enough to shake the ground beneath their feet. For decades, the stories have drifted across Africa like mist. A colossal beast with the body of an elephant, the neck of a serpent, and the mind of a predator. It moves through the rivers unseen, surfacing only to breathe or to feed. The few who claim to have seen it describe a creature unlike any known to science. Its skin smooth and dark like wet stone, its long neck slicing through the water like a living shadow. The legend of Mokele-Mbembe was thought to be fading, another myth swallowed by time and modern skepticism. But that changed in 2003, when a Congolese naturalist named Ciela Abongo journeyed into the Ozala, Kokoa National Park to study the aftermath of an Ebola outbreak that had wiped out thousands of western lowland gorillas. It was there, deep in the forest, where even sunlight struggled to reach, that she witnessed something that would haunt her forever. Abongo later described the moment in her journal. The forest had been eerily quiet that afternoon, heavy with humidity. She was standing beside a marsh when the animals around her erupted into chaos. Monkeys shrieking, birds bursting from the canopy, and the ground trembling as if something massive were moving beneath it. Then, for a fleeting second, she saw a shape, vast, fluid, and unmistakably alive, sliding between the trees. She froze, staring at the water as ripples widened, spreading across the swamp like the breath of a giant. She told no one at first. To speak of Mokele-Mbembe was to invite ridicule. Yet, when she returned to the nearby villages, she found the same story waiting for her. Dozens of locals spoke in hushed voices about a massive animal that had returned to the rivers after decades of silence. It destroyed fishing boats, overturned rafts, and left trails of broken vegetation behind. They said it was older than memory and hungrier than ever. By 2005, reports of sightings had exploded across the Democratic Republic of Congo, Cameroon, and the Central African Republic. Eyewitnesses described the same creature with chilling consistency, a long-necked, long-tailed beast, grayish, brown in color, with small, sharp eyes that glowed faintly in torchlight. Many called it a dinosaur, others a river god. Fishermen claimed their boats were overturned not for food, but for trespass, an act of warning, not hunger. Footprints were found along muddy banks, massive, 3-clawed impressions nearly a meter wide. Cryptozoologists compared them to the prints of ancient sauropods, the giant plant-eating dinosaurs believed to have gone extinct 65 million years ago. The resemblance was uncanny, almost impossible to dismiss. Yet every piece of physical evidence, photographs, plaster casts, recordings, was inconclusive. Still, the pattern was undeniable. Something was stirring in the Congo Basin. In 2023, a Congolese biologist named Joseph Owong was visiting a farming village near the northern edge of the rainforest. That night, as locals burned brush to clear land, the forest erupted with a deep, vibrating roar. At first, Owong thought it was a gorilla, until a teenager beside him shouted a single word in fear, Mokele. The sound rolled through the valley like thunder, slow, guttural, almost mechanical. The villagers fell silent. No one dared to move. When the echo finally faded, the night seemed to hold its breath. Owang later confessed that in that moment, he wasn't sure what frightened him more, the sound itself or the absolute certainty in the eyes of those who heard it. He was not alone. Across hundreds of kilometers, similar roars were reported, always near rivers, always at night. Czech conservationist Laura Lova, working with forest communities near the Likawala swamp, noted that sightings were emerging from regions with no prior history of the legend. Entire villages that had never spoken of Mokele-Mbembe were now haunted by stories of an enormous creature seen gliding through flooded forests at dusk. It was as if something buried for centuries had awoken. To understand what might truly be happening, one must return to the beginning, to the ancient heart of the legend itself. Long before Western explorers wrote the name Mokele-Mbembe in their journals, the Bajaka and Lingala peoples spoke of a creature that ruled the rivers. It was not a monster to them, but a spirit, a guardian that punished those who disrespected the waters. To fish where it lived was to invite death. To speak its name carelessly was to tempt misfortune. In these oral traditions, Mokele-Mbembe was neither fully animal nor divine. It was the embodiment of nature's will, the river's breath, the jungle's memory. Then came the outsiders. In 1776, French missionary Abbé Lavin Bonaventure Part published his History of the Kingdoms of Loango, Kakonga, and other African nations. In his writings, he recorded local accounts of a mysterious beast that left massive tracks, nearly a meter across, pressed deep into the mud. He dismissed it as superstition, but his description spread through Europe, igniting the first sparks of curiosity among explorers and naturalists. More than a century later, in 1909, a German animal dealer named Karl Hagenbeck would forever alter the course of the legend. In his book Beasts and Men, Hagenbeck relayed reports from hunters in Rhodesia who spoke of a half-elephant, half-dragon creature living in Central Africa's swamps. Convinced it was a surviving dinosaur, he financed an expedition to find it. They found nothing, but the idea was born. Newspapers ran sensational headlines, "Brontosaurus still lives." European readers were captivated. The notion that prehistoric life could still survive in the unexplored jungles of Africa was irresistible. To scientists, it was implausible. To the public, it was thrilling. Within a decade, new expeditions followed. Each came back with stories of strange roars, gigantic footprints, or river ripples moving against the current. Each one failed to produce a single body, bone, or scale. Yet the absence of proof only fueled the obsession. The Congo was vast, they reasoned. A creature could hide there, deep in the labyrinth of rivers and forests that few outsiders had ever seen. The name Mokele-Mbembe appeared in Western literature in the early 20th century, adapted from Lingala, the language of the Congo Basin. It meant, "the one who stops the flow of rivers," a phrase that perfectly captured both the creature's power and its mystery. Western adventurers transformed the myth into a quest. What had once been a spiritual tale became a zoological hunt. And the jungle, silent and patient, kept its secrets. For the locals, the creature was never about science. It was about balance. In their stories, Mokele-Mbembe punished greed and disrespect. Fishermen who took too much, hunters who defied taboos. These were the ones who vanished on the river. It was a reminder that the jungle watches and the river remembers. But, for the outside world, the legend became proof of something else. The possibility that the prehistoric past was not truly gone. By the time the modern era arrived, the myth of Mokele-Mbembe had spread across the globe. Cryptozoologists compared it to Loch Ness, journalists called it Africa's dinosaur, and filmmakers romanticized it as a living relic from another age. Yet for every image of mystery, there was also tragedy. The same regions that once whispered about Mokele-Mbembe now faced deforestation, mining, and ecological collapse. Forests that had remained untouched for millennia were vanishing under chainsaws and bulldozers. As humans invaded deeper into once isolated habitats, old legends began to resurface, not as fantasy, but as warnings. It is here, in this collision between myth and modernity, that the story of Mokele-Mbembe finds its haunting relevance. When new reports emerged in the 2000s and 2020s, some scientists speculated that what people were witnessing might not be dinosaurs at all, but displaced animals, giant snakes, elephants, or even herds of forest buffalo driven into unfamiliar waters by deforestation. Yet those who've lived in the Congo all their lives reject that theory. "We know our animals," said one fisherman from Imfondo. "What we saw was not an elephant. It was something else, something older." Satellite imagery of the Congo Basin reveals enormous tracts of flooded forest and unexplored river systems, places where no human has ever set foot. It is not hard to imagine that something unknown could survive there, hidden beneath miles of canopy and water. But for every logical explanation, there remains one fact that logic cannot erase: the consistency of the stories. From century to century, village to village, generation to generation, the creature's description never changes. Its neck, its tail, its skin, its temper, always the same. Too precise to be coincidence, too detailed to be a mere echo of myth. And then, there are the footprints. Even in recent years, explorers and researchers have documented fresh impressions along riverbanks. 3-toed, massive, and deep enough to hold water. Scientists dismiss them as misidentified elephant tracks distorted by mud and erosion. Yet, in regions where no elephants roam, that explanation falters. Each sighting, each footprint, each sound from the jungle adds another thread to the tapestry of mystery. A story that refuses to unravel, no matter how much science pulls at it. For those who've heard the roar or seen the water ripple, Mokele-Mbembe is not a question. It is a fact of life, as real as the river itself. But the most chilling thought remains unspoken. If the creature truly does exist, if it has survived since the age of dinosaurs, then what does its return mean now? Why have sightings suddenly surged after decades of silence? Some believe the answer lies not in legend, but in nature's rebellion. As the jungles shrink and rivers grow polluted, perhaps the ancient guardian of the waterways has awakened, not to protect, but to warn. In the Congo Basin, the line between myth and reality has always been thin. And as night falls over the wetlands, when the fog rolls low and the moonlight glimmers on still black water, that line disappears completely. The locals say that if you listen long enough, you can still hear the river's heartbeat, slow, steady, and ancient. They say it belongs to the one who never died. They say it belongs to Mokele-Mbembe, the lost expedition chasing the dinosaur of the Congo. By the late 20th century, the story of Mokele-Mbembe had spread beyond the swamps of the Congo Basin and captured imaginations across the globe. Scientists, journalists, and adventurers were drawn to it like moths to a flame. A prehistoric mystery lurking in one of Earth's most inaccessible wildernesses. Yet as fascination deepened, so did the danger. What began as curiosity soon turned into obsession, and for some, a deadly pursuit into a world that time forgot. The first major Western expeditions began in the 1910s and 1920s when colonial explorers reported enormous tracks near the Likawala, Ox, Herbaz River. Their accounts spoke of massive footprints, each as wide as a man's torso, pressed deep into the muddy banks. Hunters whispered of a creature that capsized canoes with a single lunge and devoured anything that entered its territory. One French missionary described it bluntly in his diary: "It is like a living mountain, with skin like a crocodile and a neck like a snake." Most of these early records were dismissed by zoologists. Africa, they argued, was vast and full of myths. The idea that a dinosaur-like animal could have survived extinction was considered fantasy. Yet not everyone was so sure. A handful of scientists, mostly biologists with a taste for the unconventional, began to wonder, What if evolution had allowed a relic species to persist, hidden in the swamps of the Congo Basin, cut off from the outside world for 65 million years? That question drove the first modern expedition in 1980, led by Herman Regusters, a U.S. engineer and explorer who traveled deep into the region with his wife, Kay. Their journey into the Congo was anything but ordinary. Weeks of preparation turned into months of survival. The team faced torrential rain, disease, and hostile terrain. Yet Regusters reported seeing something that still haunts debates today: a large, dark shape moving beneath the water, followed by a sudden splash that sent waves rolling across the river. He described the creature as gray-brown, about 30 feet long, with a long neck and a small head. It wasn't a hippo, he said. It moved differently, silently, powerfully, as if it belonged to another age. Though Regusters captured a brief sound recording of what he claimed was Mokele-Mbembe, the evidence was inconclusive. But his story rekindled the world's fascination. Soon after, new expeditions flooded the Congo, each determined to find proof where the last had failed. In 1985, a Japanese film crew launched one of the most ambitious searches ever conducted, equipped with helicopters, boats, and night vision equipment. For 3 months, they combed through dense forests and endless waterways. Then, one morning, as mist rose from Lake Tell, the team captured footage of a massive disturbance on the water's surface. A long, dark form gliding just below, before disappearing. The clip aired on Japanese television, sparking global controversy. Scientists dismissed it as a misidentified elephant or submerged log, but to believers, it was the closest thing to proof the world had ever seen. Yet beyond the spectacle, the Congo's swamps were claiming victims of their own. The terrain itself became an adversary. Malaria, blackwater fever, and exhaustion crushed nearly every expedition. Teams vanished without trace, leaving only scattered supplies and journals. One 1992 European group disappeared entirely, their last radio transmission stating simply, "We've found the tracks again. They're fresh." For locals, this danger was nothing new. To them, the swamps were sacred, home not only to Mokele-Mbembe, but to countless spirits and ancient forces that guarded the land. Villagers in the Likawala region told outsiders the same warning again and again: "You can go there, but if Mokele-Mbembe wants you gone, you will not return." Those who lived closest to the rivers described encounters in chilling detail. Fishermen told of seeing their canoes overturned by unseen giants. Hunters spoke of massive trails where trees had been flattened in straight lines, as if something colossal had pushed through the jungle. Others claimed they had watched the creature emerge from the water. A gray form with a powerful tail, sometimes silent, sometimes roaring like thunder. Anthropologists studying the region discovered that descriptions of Mokele-Mbembe were not new inventions. The legends stretched back hundreds of years, appearing in art, oral tradition, and tribal memory. What startled researchers was the consistency. Every story, from distant tribes separated by vast distances, described the same being: a long-necked, plant-eating creature that lived deep within rivers and lakes, fiercely territorial and almost never seen on land. Could this be coincidence? Or was the creature a shared memory of something real, something passed down through time? In 1999, British explorer Bill Gibbons led one of the last major scientific expeditions of the century. With improved equipment and satellite mapping, his team targeted remote sections of the Congo never previously surveyed. They gathered dozens of eyewitness reports, some from people who had never heard of dinosaurs, yet drew what looked like sauropods from natural memory. One elder pointed to a sketch of a diplodocus and nodded immediately. "That one," he said. "It comes when the rains do." A Gibbons expedition also documented unusual biological phenomena: immense feeding scars on aquatic plants, strange echoes from sonar scans, and what appeared to be large air bubbles emerging from deep channels. Though nothing conclusive was found, he described an overwhelming sense of being watched. It's as if the forest hides its secret deliberately, he wrote. By the early 2000s, technology offered new hope. Drones, satellite imaging, and environmental DNA sampling promised to uncover what decades of boots on the ground exploration had not. But the Congo's natural defenses remained merciless. Storms destroyed equipment, humidity corrupted electronics, and dense vegetation blocked aerial surveillance. Even with 21st-century tools, the region resisted intrusion. And then a strange twist occurred. In 2016, a team studying crocodile populations in the Congo Basin retrieved DNA samples from river sediment and found genetic anomalies that didn't match any known species. The sequences were incomplete, degraded, and unclassified. The researchers were cautious, stating only that unknown large aquatic vertebrates may inhabit the region. But cryptozoologists saw it as a sign, the first biological whisper of Mokele-Mbembe in modern science. The line between science and legend blurred further when satellite imagery revealed something extraordinary near the Likawala River system, massive circular depressions visible only from above, resembling watering holes or nesting sites. Each was over 50 feet wide, surrounded by bent vegetation and radiating paths, as though enormous animals had once dragged themselves across the marsh. For most scientists, such anomalies could be natural, caused by flooding, elephant herds, or tectonic shifts. But for believers, these patterns matched the behavior of sauropods in fossilized nesting grounds found in Patagonia and India. Was the Congo holding a living relic of the Mesozoic era? Meanwhile, local testimonies continued. A hunter named Elenge, from a remote settlement near Lake Tell, told researchers that his father had once seen Mokele-Mbembe rise from the water at dusk. He described it in reverent tones. Its skin was like stone. It did not fear the hippos or the crocodiles. The forest grew silent when it appeared. When asked if he believed it was an animal or a spirit, Elenge smiled softly. "It is both," he said. "It belongs to the old world, the one that has not finished yet." Such words reflect something profound. That for those who live beside these ancient rivers, Mokele-Mbembe is not a monster or myth, but a guardian, a symbol of nature's unbroken memory. It is the embodiment of what science calls impossible and what the heart calls sacred. Despite skepticism, even some scientists admit that the Congo Basin remains one of Earth's least explored regions. Its size, over 500,000 square miles of flooded forests, makes it nearly impossible to fully survey. You could hide an elephant herd there for decades. One researcher noted, and no one would know. If smaller mammals and fish species continue to be discovered each year, could something far larger still remain hidden? By 2020, renewed interest in the legend drew new expeditions, this time blending traditional knowledge with cutting-edge tools. Indigenous trackers guided teams through the most remote wetlands, while biologists used thermal cameras and underwater microphones to monitor disturbances. One group recorded a subsurface rumble, too deep for crocodiles and too rhythmic for waves, repeating at regular intervals over 40 minutes. It resembled the low-frequency calls of whales, except whales don't live in rivers. Still, no photograph or specimen has ever confirmed Mokele-Mbembe's existence. The mystery persists, suspended between evidence and faith. But to those who've journeyed into the Congo's heart, there's a deeper truth that some secrets are not meant to be captured, only witnessed. One expedition member summarized it perfectly in his journal. "You do not find Mokele-Mbembe. You enter its world, and if it allows you to see it, you will never be the same." Even today, the Congo whispers its secret to those who dare to listen. As the world grows smaller and satellite eyes sweep across every corner of the globe, perhaps the greatest miracle is that some mysteries refuse to die. Somewhere in that labyrinth of green, under rain so heavy it sounds like the breath of the earth itself, a shape may still move beneath the water. Silent, powerful, and ancient beyond imagination. Because sometimes the unknown is not a question waiting to be answered. Sometimes it is a story waiting to be believed. Echoes from the deep, the unfinished mystery of Mokele-Mbembe. In the early morning hours of the Congo Basin, mist drifts low across the water, swallowing everything in a gray silence. Birds call faintly from the canopy. The river moves with ancient patience, dark and still as if waiting for something to rise. For centuries, people here have said that when the fog thickens, when the world grows quiet, Mokele-Mbembe stirs, the last echo of a forgotten age. But by the 21st century, the legend has evolved into something much larger than one creature. It has become a mirror reflecting our deepest longing to find mystery in a world that claims to know everything. The search in the age of science. Modern science does not dismiss mysteries, it measures them. And for decades it has measured Mokele-Mbembe in footprints, sonar echoes, sediment samples, and witness testimony, always finding something almost there but never enough. In 2021, a collaborative project between Congolese researchers and international biologists attempted the most advanced search yet. They gathered environmental eDNA, from 32 sites across the Likawala Swamp and Lake Tell region, filtering billions of genetic traces from mud and water. The idea was simple: every living organism leaves behind microscopic fragments of DNA, skin cells, mucus, waste, which can reveal the presence of species, even those never seen. The results shocked the research team. Among sequences for known animals, crocodiles, hippos, catfish, there were fragments that matched no documented species on record. Several sequences showed partial similarity to reptiles, but with enough variation to suggest something entirely unknown. One researcher later admitted anonymously, "We didn't know what to make of it. It wasn't contamination. Whatever left those traces, it's big and it's real." Officially, the report remained cautious. The anomalous DNA was labeled taxonomically unresolved reptilian signatures, but within cryptozoological circles, it reignited a global storm. Was this the long-sought biological fingerprint of Mokele-Mbembe? The controversy forced the scientific community to revisit the question once more. Could a large unknown vertebrate survive undetected in the 21st century? Skeptics argued it was impossible, that a breeding population of such size would need territory, food, and leave remains. But field researchers countered that the Congo Basin's isolation, size, and decay rate could easily conceal bones within months. Satellite mapping confirmed that the region's swamps and rivers still stretch across hundreds of thousands of square miles, most of it uncharted by foot. Even in 2025, vast sections remain so inaccessible that they have never been mapped in detail. In those waters, depth readings plunge over 100 feet in places, deep enough to hide something large and ancient: the voices of the forest. While technology has advanced, the local oral traditions have remained unchanged. Elders still speak of Mokele-Mbembe not as a myth, but as a truth. To them, the creature is a guardian of balance, a being that reminds humankind not to overreach, not to forget the sacredness of nature. One elder, known as Nengobila, told a journalist in 2020, "You people come with machines and maps, but you forget to listen. Mokele-Mbembe is not an animal for you to catch. It shows itself when the forest allows. When the world forgets respect, it will rise again." Such words sound poetic, even mystical, yet they carry deep ecological wisdom.